everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, I am set up for a straight pour today. I have a custom color blended here for the background. The colors I'm using today for this background color, it is a mixture of Liquitex Basics Titanium White, Phthalo Blue, and Phthalo Green. It may not look like it, but there is actually more green in this than there is blue. And so that is what we have for this background color. For my pour colors, and hopefully the cell makers, I have the Americana Decor Metallics by Decoart in Emerald. And if you haven't heard, I'm now a Decoart affiliate. So if you order your paints from Decoart, if you use the link that is in the description box, I receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. That helps me out to stay stocked up in supplies. I have ArtMinds DIY Now Rapide in Malibu, and the ever coveted and now extinct Mysterious. I've had these sitting around for a bit and I figure I better use them before they go bad. I had a bunch of chalk paint that went watery on me because I was saving them. I'm learning to not do that. Don't hoard the paint until it goes bad. So these paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. And then that mixture is then thinned with my concoction of 90% water and 10% Floetrol until I get the consistency that I'm looking for, which is about a 2, maybe a 2.5. It is making a mound, but it disappears very quickly. So there it is. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards. Each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need. All of that information is not going to fit on 1 card. So the video has all of it. The exact paint brands and colors, the recipe that I use, the consistency. This box here has a tip for that particular technique. And then of course, this is the picture that is associated with that video. Here at the bottom, you have the color palette that is used in that particular painting. And then these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those 2 colors. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each card has 5 color palettes. Use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more paintings than you could ever attack in a lifetime. And the palettes can of course be used for any other kind of art that you would need colors for. So beadwork, crochet, what have you. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and now also available at amazon.com. And if you get them from Amazon, please do leave feedback. They are sticklers for the algorithm over there, and feedback is a huge part of it. All right, I am going to lay down my base coat. And the reason that I'm using a base coat is because if you pour onto a bald canvas, your poured paints are going to stick to the canvas. Something has to stick to the canvas. And then what happens is your pour puddle winds up rolling over top of itself, and you will lose what is going on your edges. And that will also happen if you tilt too quickly. So if you find that you're losing the lines on your edges, you are either tilting too quickly, or you need to lay down a base coat. And if you have a base coat and you're not tilting too quickly, then perhaps your base coat is too thick. You do not want your base coat to be thicker than the paint that you pour on it. You either want your base coat to be the same consistency as your poured paints, or just a little bit thinner. And the reason that I paint my edges first, particularly in a straight pour, is because I do mix my straight pours on the thinner side, and sometimes you will not get the greatest coverage on your sides. So if you cover them first, it really makes things a lot easier, because if you wind up with some of that canvas showing through, you might wind up having to touch that up after the fact, and that is going to cost you a lot more time than just taking the 2 minutes that it takes to cover the edges ahead of time. Okay, I'm going to pop these bubbles in the base coat really quickly. You do wind up with bubbles in there, so you want to pop them before you pour, because what will happen is if you don't, it will wind up popping up through your poured paint, and then you wind up with these little pin head sized cells, and that can happen anyway, even if you torch it. I have a cat hair already. Get the schmutz as soon as you see it, because it will cause you issues later. But those little pin cells that can pop up, that is why I use a color that is in my pour. If I were to use white for my background, or for my base coat, and there's no white in my painting and I have little white cells popping up, that is not a desirable look for me. All right, so my base coat is down, and now I'm going to put some paint in a cup. I'm going to start with about 2 ounces of what I call my background color, and I call it that because generally if I get cells, it will be not from the first color that I put in. That color will wind up creating the lacing, and this needs a drop. It thickened up just a hair. Always, always check your consistency before you put it in your cup. The sauce will thicken upon standing. So you always want to be sure that your paints are going to be the same consistency. If it thickens up on you, just add a bit more of your water. Okay, I'm going to pour from up high. I want this to sink. It is sinking. Yay. That's what you want to see. That's how you wind up with cells without silicone. And often when I pour from up high and it blends in the cup, that's what gives me those cool boulder cells. Okay, this one's good. Up high again. And for my emerald green, this is such a beautiful color. It glows on a canvas and it makes fantastic cells. The Decoart Americana Decor line is my go-to for cells. And the satin enamel line also is great for cells. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of this on top just to make sure. So one of the theories is, you know, regarding getting cells without silicone is the Rayleigh-Taylor instability. That is a law of fluid dynamics. And basically that is reliant upon having paints of different densities, and one will sink. That will become what I call the background. And then the other kind of comes to the top. However, the cells that I'm getting, and I've sent this to some people who are very knowledgeable in the fluid dynamics field. I did not believe that it was due to Rayleigh-Taylor instability, and neither did they, because the cells appear more matte in finish than the background. And so they think it is some kind of hydrophobic effect that the matte paints are pushing away the glossier paints. And so I'm just going to run with that. They know a whole lot more about this stuff than I do. But here we go. We're going to make a mess. This is going to be a lot of paint. And I chose to do this with a regular cup as opposed to my measuring cup. The measuring cup makes it very precise. It comes out of that spout. But using a regular cup, it kind of gives you this symmetrical effect. Kind of that fingerling effect. I'm just gonna go in some circles here. And keeping in mind that the center of your painting is what is going to get stretched the most. So you want to try to keep that under control. That means pouring slower. As you get to the end, I do not have good luck getting a clean dismount with these cups. I just don't. I have yet to master the dismount with a regular cup. So I'm going to take my little skewer and just try to tidy that up a little bit. Okay, obviously we're getting some cells here. The emerald green always comes through. Let's pop these bubbles. This technique creates a lot of bubbles. Those paints are churning when you pour them into the cup. They are churning when you pour them onto the canvas. Okay, so now I'm going to let this sit for a minute. I'm going to be patient and I'm going to allow these cells to come up. If there are cells that are going to come up, I'm going to let them do that. And then when I stretch the canvas, those cells will stretch as well. And those are the ones that wind up becoming the boulder cells. And then after the canvas is stretched, or after the poured paint is stretched and it sits for a while, you can still wind up with some cells that pop up through your paint. I call those pop-up cells. Some people call them pearl cells. And they will be more uniform in size. The boulder cells are the ones that kind of have that cool 3D effect to them, especially when you use metallics. And I'm really loving these colors. This really feels very underwater to me. That green with these beautiful blues definitely feels like some kind of seagrass in there. And as this sits, more bubbles will start to show themselves. Just keep popping them. On the first painting that I had boulder cells, my torch wasn't working properly, and my puddle that I poured sat for like maybe 7 minutes while I was trying to remedy my torch. And I came back and there were all of these cells that had already formed. And that was number 16, video number 16 was the first painting that I did with the boulder cells. And it was a very, very happy accident. This is a lot of paint. It's another reason why I like using the measuring cup, so I don't use more than I need. Especially because straight pours, getting the cells with the straight pours, the more you stretch it, the more cells will pop up. As you stretch this top layer, that is this color, all of this area here will get stretched, and that will allow those paints that are sitting underneath that want to come up, that will allow them to do so. Again, more bubbles keep popping up. This is why patience is so important, especially in a straight pour. Tilting slowly, waiting, allowing your paint puddle to percolate. Because all of these little cells that are popping up here, these were just air bubbles that got popped. And they're the air bubbles that were underneath this color here. And so when that air bubble pops, it brings that paint up with it. And that is also, again, why I use a color for my background that is in my painting. Because there are always going to be some bubbles that you might miss in your background. And I just saw another cat hair. I don't know how my cats aren't bald. I really don't. And this part might be kind of boring to watch, but I feel like it's really important that people see exactly how long I am waiting before I tilt. If I were to just high speed this, there's no way for you to really see how slowly am I tilting, how long am I waiting until I actually do tilt. And then you don't wind up with the same result because you're not doing the same thing, basically. Full transparency. When you are torching, please, please make sure you keep it moving. Don't linger in one spot. Don't have your torch up too high or too close to the paint because you don't want to scorch your paint. Okay. So many bubbles. All right, well, it looks like this corner here is going to make the best first corner. So let's get this party started, shall we? As the Massey boys say, it's tilting time. Again, tilting very slowly. If you hear what sounds like a teenage boy screaming, he's playing a video game. He is not being held against his will. Bringing the paint back to center before I change directions. Oh, this child. It's impossible for him to not scream. I feel bad for the kid on the other end of that microphone or on the other headset. I think that we're going to have a generation of kids who are losing their hearing at a very young age because they're all screaming at each other while they play video games. Okay, again, bringing the paint back to center. Being mindful of where the weight of your paint is key to controlling your puddle and where your paint is going. And the best way to tell where the weight of your paint is where it is moving the fastest. And you can use that to push your paint around. I can get very, very specific what I want to tilt off. If I just want to tilt the center of one side, like say I just wanted to tilt this part off, I could totally do that just by being mindful of the weight of the paint. So I am going to lose some of this green, but I will still have plenty of it left. Because it's going to get stretched. Okay, and now for the long journey to the adjacent corner. This is going to take a minute. This is why patience is very, very important. There are some really interesting cells going on here. They're not quite boulder cells, but they're like little bullseyes. That is a very interesting effect that I cannot say with any kind of great assurity that I've had that happen before in a straight pour. Very interesting indeed. And you can see, you know, by being mindful of the weight of your paint, you can almost make a corner. You'll never get a full 90-degree angle, but you can get perpendicular lines. Okay. And now I'm going to just move this around a bit, again, to stretch that top layer and get some more cells to pop up as I stretch. But I'm also going to be adjusting my composition. I don't really like for my focal point to be perfectly center unless I am using a square canvas. And even then, maybe not, but that's the only time. Okay, how am I feeling about this? This is a lot of green here, and not as much contrast as I would like in all of that green. So I'm going to try to push some of that off. And this is a good example of using the weight of your paint to control your composition. And you'll see I'm just going to be losing it right here, not on that corner. I don't want to lose all of that. I just don't want quite as much. Okay, there we go. Okay. I think I'm going to leave that be. And I'm going to let this sit and do what it does. Might wind up with some more cells. We'll find out. Okay, I'm going to clean up. I'm going to let this sit for a bit, and I will bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, so here it is. I did have some more cells pop up on their own, the little pop-up cells, as you can see. Let me get in close here so you can really enjoy the sparkle. Some very interesting cells going on here. These funky little things. Very interesting cells indeed. It's like layers. I can't say I've had these pop up in a straight pour before. And that emerald always steals the show. Crazy sparkles. But there it is. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. Do check out the description box below for links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. Always appreciate it. Never expected. That one looks like a hole. Very interesting effect. Also in the description box, you will find links to all my affiliate links, including Decoart, Amazon, Blick, Arteza. Do check those out. If you enter through those links, anything that you purchase off those websites, I make a small commission of and no additional cost to you. Also in the description box, you will find the link to our Facebook group, Go Make Some Art. Join us there, post your masterpieces, ask your questions, get some inspiration. Good times are had by all. Well, by most, you know, it's the internet. But yeah, I think I dig this piece. It's very unusual. It is unlike I haven't poured anything that looks like this. So that's always fun when you get a new effect. But there it is. All right, y'all. That's going to be it for me for today. I hope you have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.